All right, guys, and welcome back to Real Talk Sports with Rico. Today, I will be your host. Today's show, we are only talking about the NBA playoffs here, and we're talking about round one. So, before we actually jump into the content, let me first and foremost thank Anchor for being our platform, which is now Spotify podcast. Want to go ahead and let you know that we also do have our show, which does play on YouTube. You can follow us there at Real Talk Sports with Rico. And as you see up here in the description, we actually throw up a show here every Sunday generally. And make sure that you press that like and subscribe button, guys, if you are currently taking a look here at the channel. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into one of my most favorite sporting events of the year, and that is the NBA playoffs here. What a what a round so far it has been. And let's start right at the top in the Eastern Conference here. Round one, we have the Miami Heat with the Milwaukee Bucks here. You know, the Milwaukee Bucks coming in here are the number one seed. Miami had to fight and claw their way in. They lost the playing game, the first to secure the seventh seed. Then they came back here and secured the eighth seed, beating Chicago. And the question was, would Miami come in and be able to take advantage of the fact that Milwaukee had such an amount of time with rest? And I'm not sure if that was the case here in game one, but Miami took this 130 to 117. And I think mainly it came down to the fact that Giannis Antetokounmpo was out with the tailbone. Once he went down with that hard fall and the tailbone and he was ruled out, I think that really might have changed the dynamic of the series. And I'm actually having Milwaukee in the Eastern Conference Finals. And if Giannis is unable to go, that certainly changes a lot of the brackets. And I think that Milwaukee has a real chance, a legitimate chance of losing here in round one. The way Miami played was surprising to me because when you look at the stat sheet here, Miami actually shot 59% from the field, but more importantly, they shot 60% from the three-point land. And if you have been following Miami, Miami struggles to shoot the three ball. That is the one thing Miami had trouble with in the season, and it was the one thing that I thought was going to hurt them in this particular round because you look at Giannis. Giannis is able to get into your lane. He's able to come downhill, and usually you have to wall him up. As you wall him up, then he's able to kick out to his shooters via Chris Middleton, Brooke Lopez, Drew Holiday. He's got Grayson Allen out there, Jamison Crowder, Joe Ingles on the team. I think that the Bucks probably have a more deeper team than they had a couple of years ago when they won the NBA Finals. But all that is negated now if Giannis cannot go. I had Milwaukee to win this series. Jimmy Buckets, a guy I love. You know, I love Chicago. I got a chance to watch Jimmy Butler a lot in the playoffs in the season here. What Jimmy did in game one doesn't surprise me. The 35, 11, and 5. He did play his college ball out there in Marquette, so it was almost like coming home for him. Bam Adebayo had 22 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists. You had Gabe Vincent, 15, 6 and 2 for him. Tyler Herro before his exit, 12, 2 and 2. And Matt Strus had 8. And Kevin Love off the bench had 18. Excuse me. And Kyle Lowry only had 2. And the one takeaway from this is that Tyler Herro is out with a broken hand. That changes the dynamics for Miami. If Miami were going to go deeper than this round, they're going to need to have Tyler Herro, who's obviously out for 5 to 6 weeks, which basically is the playoffs here. And so both teams, this is an interesting series because both teams, to me, are in some trouble due to the injuries. And it is reported that Giannis is highly doubtful for game 2. And if Giannis doesn't play in game 2, I'd expect for Milwaukee to play with a bit more force. I think that this game is going to be a bit more tighter, but because Jimmy Butler is been in such clutch situations and can take over the game, I think that Miami is going to win game 2 and actually go back to Miami with a 2-0 lead if Giannis does not play in game 2. Next up, we have the 2 seed in the East, the Boston Celtics and the Atlanta Hawks. If you watch today, Atlanta just went down 2-0. Boston has essentially dominated this series. They won 112-99 in game 1. They came back and won 119-106 today. Game 3 takes place Friday on ESPN here. And when I look at Boston, Boston has really picked up right where they left off last season. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are probably one of the most dangerous tandems here in the NBA. And I love the fact that they've come back from this whole narrative that, you had to trade one or the other. Was it going to be Jaylen Brown? Was it going to be Jason Tatum? And I'm glad that Boston did not trade either. And they just let this thing work out. And they've really done a great job in keeping the core together, because they had Kyrie Irving there. They had Terry Rozier there. They had Hayward there. All these guys have been there, and they never wavered from Al Horford, Tatum, and Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown. And it's paying dividends. Today, Tatum had 29, 6 and 10. You had Jaylen Brown, who had 18, 2, and 3 as far as rebounds. Marcus Smart, last year's Defensive Player of the Year, 14, 6, and 5. And Al Horford had 8, 3, and 4. The big thing for Boston is that they shot 55% from the field. More importantly, they were 45% from the three-point land, assisted on 28 baskets, and also had 44 rebounds. So even though they were out rebounded by Atlanta, who is a bit more bigger team inside when you look at Clint Capella, you look at the young men that they have coming off the bench too as well. They have John Collins, a guy that's a starter there. So, I mean, the bigs, they do have an advantage there. But because Jason Tatum and Boston is so good defensively, they really do a good job in mitigating that. And they play the post tough, and especially the pick and roll. They have taken away that lob play that Trae Young loves to get to. And even though Trae Young had 24 today, he was 9 of 22, 2 of 8 from the three-point land. And I've always said that a good defender in the NBA, you may get scored upon 30, you may give up 30, but what type of 30 is it? What type of 24 was it? And tonight it was a tough 24 for Trae Young. Like I said, 9 of 22, 2 of 8 from the three-point land. He only had 6 assists. Boston did a terrific job on taking the physicality to Atlanta. And this is what teams who expect to be in the finals do. They come out and they make sure that they end any hope that you have to establish something in this series. Now, Boston does have to go on the road here to Atlanta. I have utmost confidence in Boston getting this series taken care of. I think that at this point, it will probably be a gentleman's sweep here. I think that Boston will take care of business, thus far taking care of business over the first 2 games. And really, with the news that has developed here in Milwaukee, they may be the clear-cut favorites to the NBA Finals. Next up, let's look at the 3rd seed here in the East, and that is going to be the 76ers against the Brooklyn Nets, who are coming in at the 6th seed. There has been 2 games played in this one, and the 76ers were all over the Nets in game 1, 126-101. Joel Embiid is the MVP. I thought he was the MVP last year, and I I just could not see Joel Embiid not winning this award. He's leading the NBA in scoring, and without Joel Embiid, the 76ers would be into some real trouble here. In game 1, he had 26 points. He was 11 of 11 from the line, just absolutely stellar and an MVP effort. And more importantly, James Harden has played extremely well. And remember on the preview show, I said that James Harden had to play well in order for the 76ers to advance, and he had to play some good defense. In game 1, he had 23 and 13, which is what you would want to see. That was reminiscent of almost the, how can I say it, the old Houston Rocket days. And I said he didn't have to be that, but he needed to be something along those lines for them to advance. So he looked good in game 1. In game 2, it was 96-84. The Nets were actually winning this basketball game. And then it was a fury that was put on by the 76ers to go ahead and end any hopes that the Nets had. And I love the way that Philly was challenged in this. I love the way that they had to come back and fight back in this one. And this is one of the things that I said that I'm not sure if I can trust Philly, because I just talked about how James Harden had the 23 and 13 in game 1. In game 2, he only had 8 and 7. He was 2 of 8 from the three-point land and 3 of 13. However, the consistency was Joel Embiid with the 20 points and 19 rebounds and 7 assists, which is why he's the MVP. You take him out of Philadelphia and they're not going anywhere, because Joel Embiid was able to establish himself and really fight himself through the double teams. He was able to get Tyrese Maxey looks. He had 33 after 23 in game 1. He also was able to get Tobias Harris some open looks. They needed him to step up. He had 20 points as well. And they were able to take care of business at home, and they now have a 2-0 lead. Is it going to be tough in Brooklyn? Sure. But I think Philly is going to be able to handle Brooklyn. And I do have to take my hats off to Brooklyn, because Miles Bridges has played very well. He had 30 in game 1. He had 21 here in this particular game. And it really shows how good him and Cam Johnson are. Cam Johnson had 28 in this one too. And Phoenix is really seeing how much they lost when they gave up the trade to get Kevin Durant from Brooklyn. But these guys were terrific. Spencer DeWitt, he's been a bit up and down in this series thus far, but he has been stable as far as giving them some real veteran point guard leadership. It's only a matter of time before Spencer DeWitt actually, gets it going offensively, which is why it is possible that Brooklyn could get a game in this series. I expect for them to come out hard here in game 3. But again, right now, it's just too much Philly. And Philly is going to have to get more consistent, obviously, as the rounds go along, and obviously as they advance. They were able to escape out of game 2. Very fortunate. Next up, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers and the New York Knicks. This is a series that I picked to go 7. I like Cleveland a lot in this series. I like the fact that this year they have Donovan Mitchell, who is very experienced to go with their young core. And the first game was 101-97. I think the Cavs just really came out tight in that particular contest. And the Knicks were able to lock up the Cavs in critical moments. Even though the Knicks won, it was a low-scoring game, 101-97. And in game 2, the Cavs handled the Knicks 107-90. The one takeaway in this particular series is that the Cleveland Cavaliers, out of everybody in the playoffs, they have the most stingiest defense. And you got a chance to see that. Their bigs like to run the floor. I love Jarrett Allen. I've always loved his game. I never will forget when he was laughed at on draft night. And I was like, you know what? Looking at his highlight tapes, the way he was blocking shots, the way he was able to run the floor, I was like, man, this guy's going to be good. And he has been good, every bit of good. When you look at the trade that took place that got James Harden over there, the Cavs got a really, really big steal in Jared Allen. And, the Towers played well. Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, these guys had played very well. And they did a great job in making it tough for RJ Barrett, who struggled in game one. He struggled in game two. Julius Randle has been able to get his, and so has Jalen Brunson. But the bigs, Mitchell Robertson, these guys like that, they really have struggled to get some traction in there because of the physicality that they are getting with Jared Allen and those guys up front. Next, I have to tip my hat off to Darius Garland. 32 points, 10 of 11 from the free throw line tonight. And more importantly, when the Cavs drafted Darius Garland, you knew he would be good if he could be healthy. And he's got over the health concerns that he had coming out of college, but his game is really, really evolved. You cannot stop him from going to the cup, and his shot has become so good. He's absolutely deadly. 32 and 7 tonight. Got a chance to watch him distribute and dish up some beautiful assists for Mobley and for Jared Allen. The compliment that they get with Donovan Mitchell, even though he had a tough shooting night per se, Spider still had 17 and 13 assists, which is what Cleveland needed, which was a real closer. And I love the fact that they have this. I know it's going to be a ruckus environment in New York. I expect for them to respond, but I think that the experience with Donovan Mitchell is going to help the Cavs advance. This is probably one of the best series I think that anybody could watch in this year's playoffs. Next up, let's take a look here at the Western Conference Finals, or the Western Conference Finals. We're not there yet, but the Western Conference, starting with the 1 seed, you have the Denver Nuggets and the Minnesota Timberwolves. They are set to play here tomorrow, the late game, 10 p.m. on TNT. And the Nuggets took care of business against the Timberwolves, 109-80. And I mean, they just dismantled the Timberwolves, absolutely dismantled the Timberwolves. DeAndre Jordan, let me start there. DeAndre Jordan looked like the DeAndre Jordan from Lob City 5-10 years ago. Okay, that's number one. And he's the backup center. Okay, so he was playing well. You had Jamal Murray playing like Jamal Murray from the bubble. He had 24, 8, and 8, which is very scary. 8 assists, 8 rebounds. He was setting teammates up left and right. Aaron Gordon, a guy that he had that little bit of drop off. I was really worried about him after last season, but he has come into this year, new energy. I believe he led the league in dunks. He had 13 and 5. And then you also put that with, I think, where they got a steal in Caldwell Pope. And he had 15 and 4 and knocked down 50% of his 3-point shots off the bench. I love Bruce Brown, a guy that they got from New Jersey. He's everything for them. He had the 14 points. And then they also have the rookie Braum there from Kansas. I love his game. I love his feistiness. He is like Tyler Hero 2.0. The Nuggets are deep and they are scary. And Michael Porter Jr., 18 points. And here's a guy that missed all of last year with the back. Denver looks like they are headed for a straight course for the Western Conference Finals. And as far as the Timberwolves are concerned, they really got exploited. And I think going into the offseason, the question that they're going to have to ask themselves is they gave up so much for Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert had 8 points and 13 rebounds, but it is going to be a tough series for him because you look at the Joker, The Joker can play inside and mainly can carve you up from the outside. And there's really not too much that Minnesota could do. Even if they put Karl Anthony Towns out there, Karl Anthony Towns has struggled with foul trouble and he's also struggled with consistency. That was one thing that killed him last year in last year's playoff series. And in this particular game, he struggled. He had the 11 points and the 10 rebounds. He really struggled. He couldn't really find his rhythm. Didn't find it till late. He was only 1 of 7 from the three-point land. Minnesota only shot 30% from there. Denver shot 41%. And then more importantly, the Timberwolves only shot 37% from the field, whereas it was so comfortable for Denver. They shot 45.6%, almost 50% from the field, a huge jump. And then for the second playoff game in a row, really, Anthony Edwards has struggled mightily. Anthony Edwards was very explosive last year in round one and in the play-in games. And this is not the same series as they are going to have with, say, a Memphis last year. Memphis gives up a lot of different, points in a lot of different ways, but Denver, it's a whole nother animal. And it just doesn't look good for the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves are going to have some questions in the offseason, and I think that they're going to have to probably revamp the roster some more and try to figure out what they're going to do. And I think that Anthony Edwards has to be the focal point for them if they're going to make an impact in this series. He's got to get going, and Karl Anthony Towns has got to get going, and they've got to figure out a way to hide Rudy Gobert if they want to get back into this series. But we'll see what happens. They do have a game here tomorrow night, but I clearly expect for Denver to take care of business here at home and push this series on into Minnesota and continue that. Next up, we have the 2 versus 7, the Memphis Grizzlies versus the Los Angeles Lakers. They're set to play here game 2 tomorrow. And I picked the Lakers to win this series. I really do. I was not concerned with that whole John Morant saying we not worried about the West and all this stuff like that. That was nothing but just, it's all just smoke. It's all just smoke, man. And the honest truth is that Memphis is in some real trouble. They're dependent on Jaren Jackson Jr. as their main big, and he's dominant. And he won the Defensive Player of the Year. And, he's up there with the blocks, and he can score with the best of them. But he gets in foul trouble. They don't have Steven Adams out there. He's out with the knee. Brandon Clark is out with the Achilles. They're down to Xavier Tillman. They have no bigs in a series where the Lakers have the clear advantage with the bigs. And can we just talk about the fact that the Lakers essentially have written their wrongs for the last 3 or 4 years with what they were able to do at the trade deadline? You have to tip your cap to Rob Pelinka, the way he was able to go out and get guys. And the fact that they went out and they revamped the roster with the trades, it actually has opened up playing time for guys like Austin Reeves, who you have seen him. It doesn't surprise me that he played so well in game 1. He had been playing well like that for the last couple months. Why? He had to have a lot of experience because D'Angelo Russell was out. LeBron was out. Whenever Anthony Davis was out, this guy was playing. And this guy played a lot and extensively last year. And he essentially was their MVP, I think, in game 1 to me. Because you know what Anthony Davis brings. You know what LeBron brings. But for Austin Reeves to come off the bench, be a plus 15 in the box score, 23 points, he had 4 assists, he had a steal. He reminded me a lot of Alex Caruso, the way he just stuffed the stat sheet. And it's going to be tough for Memphis to beat that. Memphis doesn't have a great bench. I'm pretty sure Austin Reeves himself, yeah, he outscored their bench. And the fact that Ja Morant went down late in the fourth or early in the fourth with a nasty hand injury, if you look at the thing, it almost, I'm surprised it's not broke because his hand bends back if you go back and look at the highlight reel. um, they're in trouble. They're in some real trouble because even if John Morant plays and he's not 100%, they're in trouble. If he doesn't play at all, they're really into some trouble. And yes, they got the 31 from Jaren Jackson. I'm not really banking on that with the fact that he can get into foul trouble. Xavier Tillman, I told you he's the only other big left out there. He only had 2. He was -7 in the box score. Dylan Brooks had 15, but he was -18 in the box score. And anytime, Dylan Brooks can score. I've seen him score in Oregon. He can definitely score, but to force him into a scorer's role, that's not really his game. And Desmond Bane did everything that he could do out there with the 22, but this Memphis team, it really got thin very, very quickly. Anthony Davis, shout out to him, plus 27 in the box score. He had 22 and 12, 21 from LeBron and 5 assists. He had 3 blocks. He was pinning stuff off the board, looking like the young LeBron. D'Angelo Russell, 19 points, plus 20. They had no answer to stop him in pull-up jumper situations. And what about Rudy Hachimura, a guy that I loved coming out of Gonzaga, an absolute steal that they got from Washington, had the most points in a playoff game debut, I think, for a Laker with the 29 points plus 12 in the box score. He also had 6 rebounds and an assist, but more importantly, he was 5 of 6 from downtown. Incredible, man, for Rudy Hachimura to come out there. And yeah, I think that the Lakers will win this series. I think this is going to be a real awakening for Memphis. And I think that this is going to be a tough offseason, especially if they cannot get out of round 1. Next up, we look at one of the more intriguing matchups in the West and a very exciting series. Right now, you have the Sacramento Kings, the number 3 seed, over the Golden State Warriors, the defending champs, 2-0. First time Steph Curry has been down in his career in the playoffs, 2-0. And I have Golden State winning the West, guys. And I know people are going to say that's crazy. But let me throw this at you. Golden State has one of the best home records. Okay. It's going to be hard to win in their building. And they when they play in their building, they look like the world champs. The problem is they can't figure out a way to bottle that up and take that on the road. In both of their road losses, okay, going back to game 126 to 123. Even though Golden State played poorly with the turnovers and everything else, Golden State had a chance to win that game. Wiggins missed a 3-pointer in the corner, which essentially would have won the game, in my opinion, because if he hits that 3, Golden State doesn't have to foul. They just need to get one stop, which I think they would get, and they would win game 1. They only need to get one win in Sacramento's building. The one takeaway that I can take for the Kings is that De'Aaron Fox is amazing, okay? I had a chance to look at De'Aaron Fox when he played for the University of Kentucky. It doesn't surprise me that he's this good. Malik Monk, who was his teammate and in the backcourt, and if you remember, Bam Adebayo was on that team. And that was the year that Lonzo Ball got drafted before De'Aaron Fox. And I never will forget De'Aaron Fox saying that he was the best point guard in the draft. And when I had looked at his tapes and had a chance to watch him, which they did eliminate UCLA that year, I thought that he definitely had a chance to be that point guard, which he believed to be. And what's more impressive about De'Aaron Fox is the fact that he's developed his jump shot. That was a knock on De'Aaron Fox. You knew he was super fast. You knew he could finish at the cup. You knew he could pass. You knew he would defend at a high level. And because he's big enough, he's a good rebounder. But the game was really going to open up for him and his team when he learned how to shoot the ball. And De'Aaron Fox has been amazing. He knocked down some three-pointers. Now, I know he was only 2 of 10 in game 2, but it was a big three-pointer that he knocked down. But more importantly, he has lived in Golden State's paint area. The mid-range game he has owned. He had 24. He has struggled against Steph Curry to stop him, but he has also given Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and those guys fits. Sabonis, you're seeing why he was one of the best big men coming out of Gonzaga when he came out. I don't know why the Pacers traded him. I'm still trying to figure out why OKC traded him. You know, Sabonis is very good. I remember watching his father play from Portland, and this guy, you know, he maybe not as good as passer, a good a passer as his father was, but this guy, the way he's able to get to the cup, he's more athletic, I think, than Sabonis Sr. But this guy he's special to watch. A left-hander, the way he's been able to use his body, could torque, spin, get to the foul line. He has been giving Draymond some tough looks. They have been battling in this series. He had 24, 9, and 4 in game 2. It does scare me that he has been in foul trouble. And off the bench, Davion Mitchell, Mr. Off Night himself from Baylor, love his game. He had 14 as well. First time you get a chance to see these guys. The Kings have done everything they've needed to do down the stretch of the game. Do I think that Sacramento is going to be able to get a game in Golden State? I don't think that that's going to be necessarily the case. I think that you're going to see a different team, even though Draymond is suspended, which does make me scratch my head and wonder. But I think that Golden State has enough championship DNA to really lock in, protect home court, and just remember, they've only got to get one. If they can get one in Sacramento, I think that this series is over. But kudos to Mike Brown, Coach of the Year, coaching these guys up, and just the way that they finish games have been very, very impressive. But I still have Golden State. I'm saying it right now. Even though they're down 0-2, I have Golden State winning this particular series. Next up, we have the most exciting series in the West, and that is the Los Angeles Clippers and the Phoenix Suns. If you were watching tonight, the Suns win 123-109, but game 1, the Clippers won 115-110. And the story of this series is, first and foremost, Paul George is out with the sprained knee. But more importantly, I have got to give the Clippers credit for giving Russell Westbrook the freedom to play. I love Russell Westbrook. If you've listened to this show, I love his energy. I would want him to play on my basketball team any day of the week because of the way he comes out and prepares himself. And I don't care if he shoots 2 of 10, 3 of 30. I don't care about that because he gives me rebounds. He gives me assists. He gives me the energy. He's going to get a lot of tip balls and things like that. And that's what paid dividends for the Clippers in game 1, which is why they were able to win that game. Kawhi Leonard has been spectacular, had 38 in game 1, had 31 in this one. He has single-handedly gone out, stolen the ball from Kevin Durant, made it very difficult for him. And I think that this is going to be a 6 to 7 game series. But I think ultimately what you're going to see is the Clippers. I got them advancing out of this series. I think that the Suns, are in some real trouble. I think the Suns gave away a lot of their depth when they traded away Miles Bridges and Cameron Johnson. Cameron Payne has been out, and Cameron Payne really hasn't been quite the backup point guard that they've needed him to be since they made it to the finals And they need him in this series. They really do. I love Landry, Shammer, excuse me, and all these guys like that, but they just don't have enough. And I agree kind of with what was said here earlier is that DeAndre Ayton has a big task. He needs to win the inside battle against Plumlee and Zubac. He didn't win in game one. They won in game two, but keep in mind, he was in foul trouble. Devin Booker was fantastic after a mediocre game one. And I'm not sure if they're going to be able to hold that throughout. For him to score 38 in this particular game, I'm not sure if either Devin Booker and Kevin Durant are going to be able to dominate in those facets throughout this playoff series. Even though Kevin Durant had 25, he was 10 of 19 tonight. Ayton, 7 of 10, 14 points, 13 rebounds. You had Chris Paul with the 16 and 8 and 4 and the 38 and 9 from Devin Booker. Yeah, I'm just not sure that he's going to be able to get that. I think that Russell Westbrook is going to be able to slow this guy up some. And again, I think we're going to 7, but I think that the death of the Clippers is going to get Phoenix. Look at this. I mean, they've got Eric Gordon that they brought over in the trade deadline. They have Plumlee over here. They have Bones Highland, a very talented player in his second year that they got from Denver. They got Trey Mann. They still have Norman Powell, who was out there for Sixth Man of the Year. They didn't even use Marcus Morris Sr. They have him out there. Nicholas Batum. Just the list goes on and on and on. And I think that Ty Lue finds a way for the Clippers to win this series. And so, with that being said, guys, that is essentially my recap of the NBA playoffs round one. Looking forward to this next show where we'll actually be talking about the conclusion, maybe, of some series here in round one and talking a little bit more preview going into round two. So before we actually get out of here, guys, I just want to let you guys know that you can catch us here on Spotify. Generally, those shows will pop up here on Sunday. And you can also catch us here on YouTube. And that is Real Talk Sports with Rico. I just want to go ahead and thank Anchor for being our platform, which is now Spotify Podcast. I want to thank the sponsors out there who have put sponsorship on the show and the fans out there who have listened to the show on a week-to-week basis and help us drive content to the show. And as always, guys, make sure you press the like and subscribe button below. For myself, this is Rico with Real Talk Sports saying peace, guys. We'll see you on the next show.